Hi, I'm Jill, the Holistic Rebel. You can find me at www.theholisticrebel.com. Today we're talking about how our stories keep us sick. And I had to take a look at my own personal experience and how my story of sickness defined me. As much as I said that I wanted to be well, I was somehow unwilling to let that story go. I was sort of obsessed with sickness. And I was relatively healthy, but I constantly checked my forehead to see if I had a fever. I had a thermometer in my mouth a large majority of the time. I would check my throat to see if there was anything going on there. I would read about symptoms. I would Google what they meant, and when I found a disease and I read the other symptoms, I somehow mysteriously would have those symptoms or had had them in the past, and therefore I must have this disease. It was never anything small. I was so obsessed that a friend of mine gave me a notebook, a lined notebook, and on the top of each page it said, "This is how I'm going to die today."
Why did I want to be sick?
One, so someone could fix me. Very possibly true. A lot of us, when we find a problem, we fix. We can't fix it if we don't know what the problem is. Or can we? All right, who knows? Number two, I wanted an excuse. And this was hard to come to terms with. This was hard to admit, but I wanted an excuse. Nobody will expect a whole lot of me if I'm sick. Second reason I would want an excuse, so that I don't need to focus on everything else I've got going on in my life because I'm focused over here. And it's understandable that I have to take care of this sickness first before I go about doing that. So it was always a relief to me to actually have a sickness to focus on. I would actually say that so that I could stay out of my head, and my head that says, you should be doing this, you should be doing this. I can focus over here. And it's a perfect excuse. You know, when you call out sick and you're actually sick, it's like, oh, good, I'm not lying. Did anybody ever do that? Three was to get attention. So to get attention, that was rough. That was hard for me to admit, but in all actuality, I got sympathy. You know, when somebody's sick, it's like, oh, poor you. And what can I do? Oh, let me make you a cake. let me give you some food. Let me do stuff for you. And so part of it was that. That was very subtle because I didn't have people rushing to my aid or anything. But there was some level of sympathy and some level of that I could get away with certain things, be excused from certain things, and get this attention. The second thing was that I could give attention to myself. I didn't often do that. I would run around, I would be doing this, doing that all the time, and the only time that I actually got to rest was when I was sick. And you see a lot of people who, when they do finally take a vacation, they get sick. It's like a further reminder, we need to take care of ourselves on a regular basis. I felt guilty taking time for myself unless I was sick. I think a lot of us can relate to that. The other thing was to fit in. If I'm sick, I fit in. Nobody likes anybody whose life is great or life is going well. And I can tell you that I have lost people in my life because I haven't stayed there, because I'm not in the struggle. So part of my unwillingness to be well would mean then I don't fit in to this particular group. If I'm part of a group that is involved in getting better out of the struggle, what happens when I get out of that struggle? Well, I lose my support group. So how willing am I to get well if all these people are going to leave me? One of the other reasons was to feel unique. I enjoyed feeling unique. You know, the crazier the illness, the more offbeat the rare illness, the more unique I felt. Is also coincides with competitive sickness. That was a good one. You know, if you could have the option of having a cold and scarlet fever, we'd all say a cold because that's easy to overcome. Scarlet fever, that's bad. But be honest, some of us at times want the scarlet fever because then we can overcome that. There's this story, there's this I am the victor coming out of that, and we all love that. In our stories, the stories that we read, the stories that we watch on TV, we like the peaks, the valleys. We love the drama. So the the harder the sickness is to overcome, bring it on. Then I'm not saying that this is the case with everyone, but sometimes it is. I went to my old church a few years ago, and these two women were talking. They were older women, and you know, there is this generation that this collective understanding that once we hit a certain age, we are going to be going to the doctor nonstop. So we're going to go to this doctor and we're going to go to this doctor. And I was listening to these two women that I knew, and they were going back and forth. And oh, I had this. And oh, I had this. Oh, I had this. And I'm listening to rotator cuff problems and digestive issues and everything. Well, a few months before, my retina was detached. So I walked up and I said, in March, I had my retina reattached, and that was it. They were like, what? What happened? And of course, then I get to go into the dramatic, my retina was detached and blah, blah, blah. And that was it. They stopped talking. And it was like, boom, I won. I won in the story, in this competitive bout that we had. We were all in agreement, too. I won. I was the sickest. I had epilepsy from the time I was 13 to the time I was 30. I was on medication, and I had everything. The small seizures, the grand mal seizures, where I would lose consciousness and I would convulse on the ground. So I wasn't treated any differently, really, from the people that knew me, from my friends at school. I even had them at school, and I was lucky in that regard, that they didn't treat me differently. But when I met somebody that I didn't know, I would sometimes use this sickness and say, oh, I have epilepsy, because I knew that I appeared very normal, and you could see it in their tone of voice. Wow, you seem so great, you know, so normal. They wouldn't so much put it into words, but I could feel they're like, oh. So it was kind of like a badge of honor. You know, here I am victorious over this epilepsy. I live with epilepsy. Look at me. You know, I can enact all my martyrdom in this. Look at what I have to deal with. And look how well I'm doing because of what I have to deal with. Holistic practitioners will link emotional pain with physical pain. There are different parts of our bodies that signify some emotional attachment. Now, we don't need to be very savvy in it. If we listen really closely to our bodies, we can know that. And so our physical pain sometimes is a manifestation of what's going on internally in our mind, in our soul, in our spirit. Those of us who are in Western medicine, however, really deal with the physical primarily, symptoms and fixing things physically, and therefore we can feel a victim to our bodies. So, how do we overcome that? One of the things that I had to ask myself to overcome that, to overcome feeling victim, was how is this sickness benefiting me? It was just that simple. I didn't have to fix anything. I needed to know if I really wanted to be well, if I wanted to continue. If my goal is this finish line, being well, how come I am still staring at the starting line? Because the fastest way to win a race is to focus on being well. Our culture supports our vision of sickness. We have agreed collectively on this viewpoint. We push for checkups, physicals, insurance. Everybody's got to have insurance because you're going to be sick. That's the follow-up. You need insurance because this, and this is going to happen. We have collectively agreed that we are doomed, that we are a victim to illness, that our bodies are going to break down. Be careful, because the sickness is going to creep up on you. So we need preventative medicine. The preventative, as well-intentioned as it is still focused on sickness. I am preventing sickness. And now we're calling it wellness, and that's great. That word itself opens up the range of what we're capable of, so that the focus is shifted off of illness or sickness. Preventative medicine, however, focuses on the what-if scenario, all of these. So what if this happens? I have to be careful. I have to be in fear of these things. So we're all focused on the what-if scenario over here, that we're not even paying attention to what's actually right or good about ourselves over here. And we're too focused over at something that may or may not happen. And if it does eventually come true and it does happen, well, at least we can say we've spent our time well, because we've been trying to fight. When we're sick, we place ourselves in the hands of others who know better. So we take ourselves to a doctor. A lot of times when something's really wrong, we go to a specialist who doesn't know us, but knows about the disease or the symptom. So he'll meet us after 15 minutes. The only thing he can do is make a general idea. So he makes this generalization and gives a diagnosis based on this. From this diagnosis, he will give a prognosis. So what's going to happen? And he will give you a general scenario of what you can expect. This is dangerous, because doctors in this day and age of lawsuits will give you the worst case scenario. So if I say this, and this happens, then I can't be sued. And if I say all of this happens and it doesn't happen, or you actually get better, then I look like I saved you. I look like a miracle worker, and word gets out that I'm a great doctor. So they are trained to tell you how bad it's going to be. So when we go to somebody and sit with them and we hear all of these things, we start to feel them. Do I have this? Do I have this? Do I have this? And I start to find that I am feeling sicker than before I went. 2 scenarios this past year. There was a woman that I knew who felt very good. She was saying she felt very good, and she was going to the hepatitis specialist who she hadn't seen. She had kind of written off that she was going to take care of this thing, and she went to the doctor after 4 years. The doctor reamed her out for not coming. I saw her the next week after she had seen the doctor. And she felt bad, but they'd taken some tests and everything. She felt bad about not adhering to it. And so she went back. She heard from the blood work she had cancer, stage 4. When I talked to her immediately after she got that diagnosis, she had given up. She was like, I have cancer. Now, the week before, a couple weeks before, she was feeling great and she was telling me how great she felt. Yet she went to the doctor, got the diagnosis, and of course the prognosis that you're going to die soon. She was dead within a month. Second scenario, this year, same thing. Man had one symptom, and he hadn't gone to the bathroom in a week. And he went to the doctor who did tests. They found he had cancer, late stage cancer. And all of a sudden, he had given up. He had given up almost instantaneously, and he was dead within a month. You hear these stories all the time. Now, I have my mom's friend had cancer throughout her life, and she was told at least 3 times, she had it everywhere, in her lungs, in her bones, bone marrow, in her lymph glands, everything, everywhere. And she kept getting these prognoses of you've only got like 2 to 3 months to live, over and over and over again. She didn't accept that. She said, you watch. And she took care of herself, and she just went about her life. She wasn't accepting that sickness. She ended up dying of a heart attack, but never died of that cancer. So our mindset in regards to illness is very important. It's everything. You know what? It's everything. We subconsciously ride out these protocols. We have a silent agreement that these diseases follow this path, and we have all silently agreed to that. And we are each individually doing our part in a lot of cases, rather than saying, no, I don't accept that. I had mono, an ongoing case of mono, and what they call it is the Epstein-Barr virus. And so if you have mono in your life and you carry this virus with you at any time, if you do certain things, I've been told, like not get enough sleep, not get enough rest, too hard on yourselves, the Epstein-Barr virus can kick in and knock you out. And so then you sleep for forever. So I've been away on a retreat and I got very little sleep, very, very little sleep. And I knew I was asking for it because I had to prevent the sickness by sleeping, by making sure I got an adequate amount. And I'd be irritated when people would interrupt my sleep because I need this, otherwise I'm going to get this sickness. So I came home from this weekend and I was telling my friend, just look at, I'm just going to forewarn you that I didn't get much sleep, so my Epstein-Barr is about to kick in and I'm going to be down for the count for probably a week or 2. And she said, what if you didn't need sleep? And I said, but I do. And she said, just what if you didn't? And, okay. So that night, I go to bed, and I go to bed early, and I got a phone call from somebody who was in crisis and asked me to go. And my instant thought was, no, I need sleep. And then that thought, what if I didn't need sleep, popped into my head. And I said, I really want to do this. So let me focus on what I want to do. And I kept focusing on what I wanted to do. And that sleeping marathon never kicked off. It never kicked off. You know? There's something that I learned in motorcycle safety course, and it applies in all of life. I couldn't believe that I learned it here. He said, if you see a pothole, do not look at it. If you are on your motorcycle and you see a pothole, do not look at it. You will hit it. He said, always look where you want to go, and the motorcycle will follow you. So simple. Always look at where I want to go, and those potholes go away. They don't affect us. If I am sick now, I say, this must be an indicator of something. Maybe I need to slow down. Maybe I need a little attention. Maybe I need to be kinder to myself. Maybe it's a ton of other things. If I have a sore throat, maybe I'm not expressing my truth. All of these little innuendos, these subtle things, rather than feeling a victim, what can I do? And the best thing that I can do is allow my body to do its thing. Our bodies are resilient, and we don't give them enough credit. I wake up in the morning, and if I say, oh, this hurts and what's the problem, that's what I'm going to get. But if I wake up and I say, what's working right? What's working right? My heart's beating. I can see, I can hear. You know, it's a shift in perspective, just a shift in perspective, and allowing my body and my mind and my soul to work in tandem. How much have I accepted limitations based on my sickness? How much am I saying that I cannot do because I'm sick? We forget that we write the story of our lives, and where we love the peaks and the valleys, we are the author. Don't let anybody else tell you how sick you should be or that you should fear sickness, because you alone, are the one that decides.